So let's shift to some of the industry changes, trends.
Yep, sure.
There's been a lot probably over the last 3 years. What have you seen in terms of the biggest changes, or in, let's say, digital marketing or branding? What's some of the changes you've observed?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's been a huge change and shift with creative. I mean, a couple of years ago when there was a higher rate and adoption of Canva, that really went gangbusters in
Yes.
COVID and opened up to a much broader audience than just creators and designers. And so, we're working with clients. I'd say almost 30-40% of our clients now actually already have a Canva account, opposed to 4 years ago, they didn't even have that or know that. So there's a shift and a wider adoption of certain tools, which makes it easier for us to collaborate on and to really hit the ground running with certain businesses. With that as well, you used to have to wait 3 weeks to design your own logo. And, the cost was a couple of grand. So the changes with creative and design and especially branding has really helped the small business and the startup, I would say, in being able to conceptually design something to go to market with. It may change in 2, 3, 4 years time, or in some cases I've heard of business owners being like, oh, my daughter did it 10 years ago and they've still got it on their website. So it does provide more accessibility. So there's great tools. There's one called Looker, which is a tool that you can use, and you can also mock up like different promotional merchandise and letterheads. And so you don't have to wait 3 weeks and pay 10 grand for a full brand pack. Now, I will caveat this with, you want to make sure that, if there's any relative trademarks or colors, and if your competitors have different colors, and you don't want to get the wrong logo and be stuck with it for 10 years. And so there's definitely, a place for brand designers, and I don't see that changing, but it's probably a lower market where there's this efficiency and need and low budget, where they're able to, look at even conceptually doing something, which then helps in the brief to a designer to be like, look, these are some options I've mocked up myself, rather than trying to pull it out and be like, oh, is that a tiger or a plant? Like, I don't know. So, it helps in that conversation. And so I feel like the gap and the divide is changing between, business owners and creatives, is even just using that as a demonstration tool, helps in bringing it to life.
Yep.
So that's one area for sure.
How important is, because I know we went through this trend maybe, and it's still happening now, but I don't know how big. It's definitely was big, but influencer marketing,
Mm.
you know, sort of video first strategies, interactive content. Is influencer marketing still as big as it was and getting bigger? It seems like it is, although I'm trying to get off socials, but still big.
I mean, in my opinion, the best influencer you can have for your business is you. So,
Okay.
obviously in certain other businesses, the CEO or the director isn't always forward facing, but there is so much trust and authority and representation from the business owner. You can do that on scale. The head of Instagram's on stories telling you about changes.
Mm.
He doesn't have Kylie Jenner or someone else talking about Instagram. He's talking about Instagram because
Yep.
he's the best person to talk about it.
Yep.
So, when you talk about, brands and Nike or Red Bull, of course, they're going to have athletes, but their brand and sharing that message, they almost want to demonstrate, they're demonstrating impact and change and more aspirational feelings from their product. And so they're utilizing influencers to be able to deliver that message. But if your message is really about capability and expertise, then you've got to think about who the best person in the business is to deliver that. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's you,
Yeah.
and there's this complex where, business owners, like, they don't want to self-promote, or they think they're not the best person to self-promote. Or I had a question asked, am I the best person? Am I self-promotable? I was asked this question. I was like, 100%. You have to believe in what you do, but being able to articulate that and to face that in a public forum is, quite confronting. So one is just acknowledging, like, I'm telling you, you are the best person to influence and to promote your business. Or it could be other senior directors or managers in the business. For a technical business, it could be your lead engineer or your lead scientist. So think about what messages it is, and then who the best person is to talk about that, because it could just be you.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Let's shift gears to, I think last month we shared a lot in this artificial intelligence space, and I see a lot of AI now coming into the marketing space, the branding space, whether we're using the chat GPTs of this world or whatever it may be. But you okay to go into what you see and how AI is enhancing or influencing, again, using the influencing word, some of the digital branding and marketing efforts that we've got across the board?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, my mind is ticking over on a few things. Even an example this morning, I have a staff member in here with me, Sienna, and she had asked a question, and so I just brought ChatGPT up on my phone and asked it and gave her the response. And so, I use that in a really simple way. Rather than looking online, we could spend 10 minutes talking about it. I was like, here you go, here's the answer. And so how businesses use this, different industries are going to have different adoption rates. We've used it, in, ideation and content writing and planning and strategic, being able to compile, say we've got 20 different documents, being able to condense those into a summary for us, really creates some efficiency in the process and gives us the depth of content and ideas quite often.